Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of LGOtv Big Talk. My big talk because I hate small talk. And today I have a very special guest, my dear friend, Scott Stratten. Now, Scott and I have been trying to get a date on the calendar for some time. And just to let everyone know how amazing of a friend he is and how amazing his wife is, to this morning, my guest that I was supposed to have canceled. And I posted on Facebook that I suddenly didn't have a guest. And within seconds, Scott and Allison reached out and they were like, hey, I know we've been trying to get a date. How about today? So incredibly, here it is. Amazing. My friend, Scott Stratten. Welcome to LGOtv. Big Talk.
I have this opportunity to be on your show, and then I show up with a snowman mug. Like, it makes no sense. It makes no sense on every level. It makes no sense for the time of year. It has different. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so sorry.
It makes no sense. And we're going to look back on this and be like, why is my face still red and bloated and swollen in March? What's happening? Is March of 2020 still happening? There's no time. Nobody knows anything. What day is today? What month is it? I don't even know.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Same feelings up here in Canada. It's just like, what is today? I don't know. Does it matter? I don't know either.
Yeah. Canada, better known as the apartment above the United States meth lab. Yeah, here we are. So for my guests, I want to let them know that you and your wife, Allison, are the authors of 5 best-selling business books. You are co-owners of Unmarketing Inc., and you are hosts of the Unpodcast, which is incredible. You have 5 unkids, or are they just kids? You've got some undogs.
Mostly adults right now.
So they are unkids. They are adults. Yeah, I like this. This is good. And you have made your living speaking. And you were not somebody who like did something and then got on stage and talked about it. You were a kid who saw somebody speaking and went, that's what I want to do forever. And then you shaped a career to get yourself on stage. So I want to take us back to that moment when you were like young Scott, standing in your living room, looking at Les Brown on TV and going, what? Like Scooby-Doo moment. Like what? Tell us about that.
The origin story.
The origin story.
I was at home as 12-year-olds would do, and in the town that I'm in right now, that I was watching a WNED Buffalo. I was on the TV back in the day when we knew what this meant, and changing the channel. And don't get me started on the UHF. Like that's 400 different clicks. And so what would happen is it would just stay on the same channel for like 2 or 3 days. We didn't have remotes. Like you don't understand kids these days. Back then we had no remote. So whatever was on, it was 4 days on that channel.
Unless you got off the couch.
Not happening. Not happening. Not to mention if you changed the channel and dad sat back down and it's like, you changed it. I'm like, I'm not dealing with that.
Yeah.
So it was WNED, and which was across Lake Ontario, fed from Buffalo, which is why I'm also well versed in every air conditioning repair person in North Tonawanda and Cheektowaga, because I got all those commercials for years. So I see this. They're doing a pledge drive. They're doing the PBS kind of pledge drive. For only $30 a month, you'll get this, and you'll help save the station. I thought it was even kind of odd when I was 12, and I'm like, are they begging for money to keep on air? Like, are they just going to turn off suddenly? And they're like, for $32, whatever it was per month, you're going to get as our gift this Les Brown VHS cassette of a talk. And they're like, we'll play it for you now. And they played it. And I just watched and I'm like, wait, that's a thing? And I asked my mom, I'm like, that's a job? You can just yell at people and go home? And she's like, if you put your mind to it, And so
like good supportive mom there.
Well, I had a lot of potential as a child, and I learned when I became an adult that potential means you suck now, but one day you may suck less. And,
I had a rowing coach who was like, you have just an incredible amount of potential, and I was like, great. Oh,
yeah, that's code for maybe try something else.
Yeah,
it's not gonna work. So so my mom said that's a job, and that's why I started really. That was kind of a pivot point in my brain from then. And I knew, because one of the things that for me it is like, what did I love to do? What did I feel natural at? And one of the best things my mom ever did for me was always say, just let Scott be Scott. and whatever that meant, whether that was I was 8 years old on the soccer field and I was too busy, you know, kind of picking grass and throwing it in the air than to chase down a striker with my older brother freaking out on the sideline, or I'd see a puddle and I'd just wait. And my mom would tell everybody and anybody, she would come on this and tell people the story of the best way to compare my brother, who's my older brother who lives in Texas, that we'd walk home for lunch and I would be getting home to eat lunch. My brother would be heading back to school. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, why I don't understand how he does it so fast. And he says, well, here's a piece of string. And this is Chris's route. And she just did them over on the table like a map. This is Chris's route home. And he says, now this is your route home, over the snowbank, over here, go to pet a dog. And then she pulled the 2 pieces of string out and she says, you're walking twice as far at half the speed. And I'm like, oh. And that's Scott being Scott. Let me have my piece of string, right? So I wander, I do things, I'm curious. And one of my favorite things my mom didn't do was she didn't kill my curiosity. She let me be that. She let me ask those why questions. She let me go do those things. And so it was always in my head because I could always speak. Now that's the thing. I recognized that early on because I noticed that other people didn't want to. And it wasn't for me to explain. I just didn't get nervous. I don't know why. I've never known why. It's a really valuable talent that I didn't obtain. It's just I'm missing a synapse in my brain that says wet your pants, you know, before you stand up in front of people. I'm just like, can I go? Is my turn? Also, I found out what presentations are really heavily weighted in a lot of classes as you get older. And I'm like, 30% of my mark is a presentation. That means I could fail both the midterm and the final somewhat. And if I just ace the presentation, there you go. And Brilliant. That's what I realized. But then I started looking into corporate, you know, was it where training was? And I realized it was HR, which turned me on to HR, which is what I ended up going to college for, was HR and training. So.
And then somehow you managed to make a living selling air. Like, I mean, look, I have a master's degree in political management. Okay, that makes me a professional spin doctor. I know how to sell bullshit, but you sold air. I mean, that's like, I bow down to you are my God. I got nothing
on me. You got nothing. I always, when I would do a sales talk, right? So the sales talks are usually different beasts, and it's usually a sales kickoff, and they're trying to get there. Like, last year, you all hit that $1 million goal. Finally, it was unreachable, and you did it. Now that's your baseline. Now you need 2 million. Like, so it's like the reward becomes the minimum expectation.
Yeah.
And so for me, when it came to, you have to build credibility when you get in front of an audience, and this shows up with this man bun, and I look like the sound guy.
Yeah.
And so I need to establish credibility very quickly. One is I do it through self-depreciation kind of humor, so I walk out with a man bun joke immediately. But then I also give credibility through my jokes, though. So I talk about part of my experience, which was I was the national sales training manager for a packaging company. I flew around North America training people how to sell bubble wrap, and then I just pause. And then I look at the audience, I say, I'm going to say that again. I flew around North America training people how to sell bubble wrap. And I said, you guys would think what you sell is hard? And that could be mutual funds. It could be mortgages. It could be dental equipment. And I'm like, I taught people how to sell air. And I ran 3-day training schools on this. That is 24 hours total of content over one thing. Ready? That's it. That's the whole product. That's everything. It pops or it doesn't. That's it. End of class. 3 days. You think you can fill time? I have a master's in BS. I have an MBS.
I love that. I love that. So you never got scared, but you do. I mean, like, we all have physiological reactions. Like, don't you have like the sweat and the, like, I mean, I'm like, maybe it's just because I'm a perimenopausal woman, but I get up there, like, I'm not nervous to get on stage anymore, but still my body, like, my brain says there's nothing to be afraid of. You've done this. You've got it. You know your story. Scott told you to just be LGO, and now you're just LGO being LGO, and it's all good. But like, my armpits didn't get the message. Like, they still are what? How do you get rid of that?
Yeah. Well, look, as I told my son, your gift of the Stratten DNA gives you 2 things: really large craniums. I mean, circumference wise, like, this is the skull size is top 1%. Hat shopping is a nightmare in the Stratten family. And 2,
your mother would probably be like, giving birth was a nightmare. Forget your hat shopping. Okay, but sorry, 2.
Credit where it's due. Yeah. and 2, we sweat on the thought of sweating. So I've all, but so sweating for me isn't a trigger. It is a way of life, and that's actually when people talk about me, let's say on stage, I sometimes get used as an example of a personal brand. You know, I have the tattoos and I wear the black shirt, and I wear a black shirt because it doesn't show sweat. That's why I wear it on stage. Like, you talk about authenticity and what people are being who they are. Yeah, literally, I hate pit stains. I don't know how else I can word that. How else can I word that? Like, I want to vomit when I see a picture of that. That's all I can see, because I see a picture and I can be in front of 7,000 people on stage and just getting a standing ovation. And if I'm going like this with my arms up and there's a pit stain, I'm like, burn it. Burn the photo. So, but that's not a reaction for me. The only time I remember getting nervous, getting up in front of people, honestly, from grade school till today, was my first training session I ran for the packaging company. I was 25, about to give a sales talk on how to do sales to our distributors. That's who I trained. I didn't train our people. I trained our distributors who sold the products to be consultative kind of selling versus product selling. And I stood up in front of a bunch of, middle-aged, mostly dudes who's been in the cleaning and distribution business for 30 to 60 years. And this 25-year-old's like, "What's up, kids? Let's talk about selling." And there's yeah, let's talk about it. And so that was, but I was also nervous because I wasn't prepared as I should have been. And it wasn't even the fact that it was Scott realizing he skated through high school and college, not preparing presentations, and maybe he should have done some homework before this one. That's what that was.
Yeah. We often hear, some of our speaker friends being like, "Yeah, I just got up on stage and winged it." And you're like, that's not what you did up there. You probably screwed up. I mean, but there's a big difference between being super scripted of every single thing you're going to say and having the bones of where you want to get them and some stories that you want to tell that you have rehearsed and you've done enough times that you can wing them. Our mutual friend Aaron King and I were talking about the difference between getting on stage and reciting a speech versus getting on stage and ranting. And we had joked around that this year was going to be, we said it was going to be #rant2020, and we were going to both commit to each other that we'd get up on stage and channel our inner Scott Stratten and just rant up there on stage. And then COVID happened, so there's less ranting right now. But in going live every morning, as I do, without a script at all, but just like a general idea of what like a topic, I have found so much more comfort in the ranting. And you have made a career of ranting on stage, but it's not extemporaneous. It's a bit that you've gone through over and over and over.
It takes a lot of work to make it look like there was no work done.
Yes.
Honestly, and that's for, it's a wonderful compliment and a little bit of a backhanded one sometimes when people come up and they're just like, it just makes it so, make it look so easy. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. And it's true because of my style on stage. But here's the thing is, the problem is we see something, we're like, oh, I can do that, or we should do that. And for me, my style has morphed just out of reps.
Yes.
Like doing literally the past 10 years, it's been over 500 keynotes. And then before that was hundreds and hundreds of training sessions I ran and speaking and then presentations and then our show. So all those reps, you have over 1,000 reps of being able to get a message across and say something and try to learn to make it resonate and to hit and the timing. Well, that's the practice. Those are the reps. But here's the difference right now, because one of my badges of pride has been that I don't rehearse, that I'm one take Stratten. I can do a talk like this and one take and I'm out of here. And everybody's like, yay, one take Stratten. No. And they don't say that. It's just me saying it to myself. But,
I've never heard you call that before, but
yeah. So, but you get to the point now where then this happens and the pandemic hits and we're all kind of locked in and the speaking industry's gone. And my entire business was based on large indoor gatherings. So that's not here anymore. So you look at this and I'm saying, so how do we form into be doing this by going through a camera? And I have not done more prep and more rehearsal in my life combined than I've done even for the past 2 weeks. And that means these senses, sometimes it's like this pride. One of the reasons pride is a deadly sin is because, I'm being proud of the wrong things. I'm proud that I'm proud I didn't do as much work as I could have for something, or it doesn't make any sense necessarily. And that's what this time kind of has given me and given us, that I'm finally listening to some, the different things that Alice and I have talked about for years. And I'm like, you know what? I think that's right. And she's like, well, yeah, I know, because I've been saying that. for years. And takes Allison says it takes me about 6 months to get a piece of advice from an outside source, not her, but an outside source, but sometimes her, I'm sure, to actually have it. And here's an example of this where for me, I don't need feedback. I'm Scott. I'm on marketing, right? I know what I'm doing. And I had a guy at a talk, one of my talks. He is a fan and he saw me a few times. And one of the things, one of my stories I tell is the Joshy Ritz-Carlton story. And I show the Ritz-Carlton logo and then I show Joshy in a photo and I replace the lion from the Ritz-Carlton logo with Joshy. So it goes from a lion to a giraffe, right? And that's how powerful a story can be.
It's a great bit.
The billion-dollar brand. But I would always show the logo, but they were kind of small on the screen. And a guy came up to me, I think I was in Austin at the time. He's walking out. He's like, "Hey, Scott, good seeing you. Your talk again." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks, man. I always have time for the fans." And so he was like, "I've seen you a few times now, and would you mind if I gave you some unsolicited feedback?" And I said to him, and I quote, "Oh, no, thank you." He's like, "Great."
And then he did it anyway.
And he's like, "So great. What I was noticing," he literally did not register my response because he wasn't asking as a question. He was asking as the lead into his statement. And so he said, "Well,"
it was the warning.
Yeah. And I literally looked at him. I'm like, "Oh, no, thank you." He's like, "Okay, so on your slides," and he says the logo is really small, and I was sitting at the back and I can't see it. And I'm like, "Well, thank you so much." And I just focused on the fact that he gave me unsolicited feedback. I texted Allison. I told her the story. I'm like, "Can you believe this?" And she's like, "It's okay, sugar." And she's so wonderful with me. And I'm like, I know, but I'm furious. And I just keep going. And then 6 months later, I swear to you, I'm on a flight. And I'm sitting there just kind of fiddling around with slides. And I'm thinking, I should make these logos bigger.
Brilliant idea, Scott.
Yeah. And then I texted.
Now, did you remember him? And were you like, yeah, he was right? Or did it like, was it just like a seed that was in there?
No, I'm still furious with him. Still furious. But he was right.
So from time to time, my husband actually listens to these podcasts. And so he's probably going, because the same exact thing happens in our house where I'll be like, you could maybe do this. And then he's like, gives me all the 15 reasons why he shouldn't. And then for him, it's usually about 4 years later. And he's like, "Hey, I was thinking that maybe this is a good idea. So maybe this is just a male trait. I don't know."
It's certainly a Scott trait. That's as far as the research I've gone. So but it's also, that's what part of this now is a realization, and what these past 4 or 5 months has done for me is a realization, and it's a humbling thing. It's a realization that what I could have done differently, but how I can think differently and look differently going forward. If I'm true to what or my values are, and I'm true to what I say, and if I'm true to, promoting love, I'm true to unlearning and all the words I have around me and on me. It's like, so then what is my thought process? Because I always thought about that if my intent was good, that if I thought my intent was good, it didn't matter the reception of the message, though it didn't matter what was out there. So me smacking somebody when when somebody came up with unsolicited feedback, I had always said, unsolicited feedback is worth what you pay for it. That's one of the lines I've used, and people love it. And then of course, then I think about it, right? Because it's not, I'm just like, it's a good line. And I just kind of go, and I just send it out to the ether. Yep. I'm like, use that, world. And take the quote and put it into a stock motivational photo and like whatever it's going to be
of yourself.
because my brain, why I think Twitter worked so well for me, why it became one of my biggest platforms originally, was because of the pithy kind of statements. But that's what I'm really good in. I'm a marketer, so it's headline stuff, it's hooks. But then the rest of that, I'm just like, somebody else can figure that stuff out. I'm just like, but I've said this statement. But you're realizing that with advice where he came with unsolicited feedback, yes, but it came out of the intent of he loves my stuff. And that was a hurdle he was noticing that could just make a small change to make the rest of even more of the world enjoy my stuff. But I took it as an affront. I took it as an offense that how dare you? How dare a member of the audience come up to the performer? And because there's lines, and Brene Brown has some great lines about it. I love her lines about if you're not in the ring with me, if you're not on the, just in the pit,
in the arena,
in the arena, exactly. And I do love that, but there is a middle here, and this is one of the things I've really been learning a lot, especially in the past few months, but hammering it home in my brain. Because when I came out with Unmarketing, from the get-go, whether it was 20 years ago starting the company or the past 10 years or even the past couple years, it's always been like, the way I get us, you polarize by taking a strong stance. It's not a tactic for me. It's my personality, but you also notice the result of it. Well, the problem is when you polarize so hard, everything is in your mind is black and white and nothing is.
Right.
There's when you start dealing in absolutes, that's when we get a problem. But when I dealt with absolutes, when I was building my following on Twitter, those absolutes created friction. And somebody would say, why are you giving rules for Twitter? And who made you the sheriff? And I'm like, I did. Howdy. Right. And so it's just like, because that's my thing. That's a contrarian disruption, kind of my personality that goes with it. But I never look at the gray, because the middle is much bigger than the black or the white, and how it all works. And that's one of the things I've been learning in the past few months of where I've stood, what I've done, and what I've stood for. But what I put out there, do I have to smack somebody back all the time? Do I have to do this? And I don't regret, my early days on Twitter where I would take on all comers, because that's how the Jackass Whisperer phrase was born. I love the fact, and that you can see Jack right here behind me there. Like that's how it's come out of that stuff. So I certainly have any regrets, but I've learned things, and the goal is to then try to figure out how to apply those to daily life.
But so this is an interesting question, because, you know me, I tend to be very black and white also. You either stand for something or you stand against something. But if you're not in one camp or the other, you're sort of nowhere. Right. And possibly this is because our politics in the US right now is so fractured and just so terrible that there isn't a lot of middle ground, right? You can't be well, I don't stand for what he, I don't like him as a person, but I'm going to vote for him. It's like, well, no, you're like, if any time your political stance hurts other people, it becomes a moral stance. And I deeply believe that. But I get what you're saying in terms of there is nuance in between, and do you have to smack someone down all the way? But isn't there something to be said for calling out bullshit when you see it, or elevating good stuff, so that the people who are in the middle, who are in the gray, either say, well, I don't want to be like that, and I do want to be like that. So those are examples. I mean, is there a way to do that, but just with more kindness, or maybe with more nuance?
Look, 100%. I'm glad you asked, because I was going to add something to it. Was there are some issues that are black and white. There are some things that it was simply this: you're either here or you're here. And the gray for me, where I'm realizing the gray is stuff that is not a hill I would die on. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to die on the hill of you retweeting improperly. I'm not going to die on the hill that you sent me a newsletter twice in 1 week and you only said once. I might bring it up, but I'm not going to. Okay, but I understand now. See, it's a business practice. Look, I want more gray in my life so I can give better stances to the black and white. Because I will not go quietly. I will stand for the things I believe in, and I will stand with the people that we stand with. And the problem is, when every single thing for me is black and white, every single thing is a stance, well, then it weakens the stance for the things that matter. And that's the thing. I am not about the gray in certain things. I am right now. You pick a side, you pick a place, you pick a stance, and the gray hurts that. The gray is like, well, yeah, but they're this, but they're this. I'm like, no, this is unprecedented. What is going on right now is unheard of. I'm scared for America. I'm scared for the first time in my life. I'm scared for your country and for what's going on so many levels. And so it's like, and that was making me also lose my mind. What can I do? Because I have a Superman complex. I just want to fix whatever that is. And that's that's a Scott thing. I don't know the research on the aforementioned husband or any other people in my gender or category. But what's going on right now is terrifying. That there's things that are happening that would be considered war crimes if this was an international war zone. There's the steps of tyranny are you're on step 6. And it scares me. And I'm really concerned. I'm concerned for you. I'm concerned for our other friends and people, and it's a country we've grown to love. It's our neighbor. We're not Canada above a meth lab. We're not. We care about the States. We're so easy to get on our high moose in Canada. We're so simple to say, oh, America, because we've been waiting so long to do that. And that's not helpful. That's not good, and it's not true. We also have issues here. Different levels, sure. We have so many issues. We have issues of racism here. We have horrific treatment of our indigenous people here. Still till this day, we have the Japanese internment camps that happen here. We're just going to wipe that away? No, we do not have clean hands here. But what is going on in the States is terrifying to us right now. And it's not because of, well, good, lock the border, stay away. I want to bring you up here. We have so much land, so much frozen land, but we have so much land. And that's hard. So I took a Facebook off my phone. I took Twitter off mostly because I was going on every day on stuff that the information I couldn't do anything with. It was just making me angry and angrier. And for a month or two ago, I was furious every day. I'm not a furious guy. I'm actually pretty laid back, and people don't realize that. I professionally did nothing for the past 10 years except speak for an hour. Like, you know, like my life was downtime. And I'm very good at doing nothing. I am a pro at doing nothing. I got certified as a person who does nothing a couple weeks ago. Yeah, it was a certificate thing. It just came out, and this is something that I feel is so powerless. And so then we focused on, and Allison's been great for this for me. Is focusing on. So then, what can we do here to help? What can we do in our backyard? And what can we do then help at a distance with America, with the country? And it's hard. So it's just been putting my head down and trying to do work, because we're reinventing us as well. And this is like the second or third reinvention of things.
It's you know, the taking Facebook off your phone is such a smart thing. I did that myself about a month ago, and I've kind of been like a ghost on social media. Like I've been posting a lot. Like I go on, I post my thing, and then I leave. Because just the doom scrolling and the getting involved in the back and forth and the equivocation of people who I looked up to, who are justifying decisions that are they just are not aligned with what I feel in my core is right and good. And I think the difference between what's happening in Canada and what's happening down here is that regardless of where you are in your politics, there is a belief and an honoring of systems of government and, you know, traditions of democracy that are being upended. And that's the terrifying part. Yeah, I mean, like you and I, you know, we both are, you know, pretty open about our belief and where we stand on, you know, what side of the aisle, but it is the degradation of the rule of law and of the honoring of the Oval Office. I mean, I say all the time, I didn't agree with a single one of Ronald Reagan's policies, but the man never took his jacket off in the Oval Office. Such was his reverence for the building and the history and what happened there. So that to me is the terrifying part. But I want to switch, you know, you talked about the reinvention. I want to go back to the sort of reinvention thing, because I think there's a pattern that emerges here where it's like, you know, you're sort of like, don't do anything, try to do as little as you can, skate by on the test with the presentation, there it is. And that's worked. And you've never been nervous. And now suddenly you are pivoting and you're doing everything to camera, and you're not getting the audience feedback, and you're not traveling. You don't have the downtime to sort of reflect, and you don't have all the reps, which in and of themselves are rehearsal, right? Like your one take stop, that's because you took the take yesterday on a stage in Milwaukee, and now you're doing it on a stage in, you know, New York City or wherever it is. So it's easier to do that. I did a virtual keynote a couple weeks ago. I could say last week or yesterday, but I'm not doing, they're just not that frequent. And I was so nervous because I just hadn't done the stuff, and I messed up left and right, and it was awful. And I was like, oh shit, I guess I got to start rehearsing. So in each of your reinventions, though, there has been this pattern of things work, Scott being Scott works, and then the world changes, whether it's the world inside your home changing, whether it's the world with COVID changing, whether it's, you know, whatever. And then you go back down into the cave and you reinvent. And is there nervousness? And is that where you get nervous in the reinvention part? Or there's just none of it? It's just, you're just down.
Well, I've certainly gone through every motion in the encyclopedia in the past few months, for sure, but none of it was nerves about doing the work or getting it done, or like Alice and I didn't sit down and say, let's reinvent. You know, it comes through the time. It comes through, we've gotten the reps as a couple. Right. We understand. And Allison is just Mozart, understanding how to be able to talk to this just all over the map all the time. But we have a trust, and when we have that in, internally, and as our kind of the bedrock sheet of our foundation of our relationship, that we're on the same side, we're trying to do the best. But it's me understanding that, this is the Scott show, right? This is I started on marketing, and I built it up, and it was through my ideas. And then I had a poorly written 30-something thousand words on marketing, and her and I had met on Twitter, and I texted her on BlackBerry Messenger, and talking about the book, and she took it over, and she's a brilliant writer. I had no idea that she was, and it turned into this thing. But at the end of the day, I'd realized I had never asked her, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about what I've written here? What do you think about what I've said here? It was always, I'm going to say this, do this. And she wrote the books, and we do the show together. But opening up the brilliant brain of Allison for me to not even think about that, because I always thought part of it's an entrepreneurial mind, which is saying I have to do this. And part of it's like, I really enjoy my own thoughts. Right. I'm a really big fan of what I say, right? And that's an ego that has to be shrunk over a long time, long time of thinking and realizing and stuff, where the biggest asset here we have is Allison when it comes to that stuff. And we have 250,000 words she's written in these books. So all the reinvention was, what do we do with this? What's different now than was 10 years ago when there was a recession and I had negative revenue and I had to start over again? The difference now is we have 250,000 words in books. We have each other, and we have stuff that we haven't even tapped. So all the stuff going on now is like just mining the gold from the past. And it's not even the gold. We don't have to extract it. It's just sitting in a bag that Allison already made the bag of, and it's sitting there, and we just got to take it out of the stuff. But one of the issues here is I got away from, which I swear I wasn't going to do again, but I got away from bettering myself and learning more, to just riding the wave. I did 10 years of keynotes, 50, 60 a year, but that was my goal. And the goal was, look, that was, life I've always noticed was about the endless pursuit of more, right? No matter what you're getting, you needed to get more. You need a bigger house, a bigger car, a better car, or more money. And we were sitting, this is 5 years ago now, I think 6 years ago, in Germany. I was doing a gig in Frankfurt in Germany. It was so ridiculously wonderful and surreal. And we're sitting on a patio, and we're having beer and schnitzel. Yeah,
of course.
It's
as
like
you do.
It's like coming to Canada and having poutine. And so we sat there, and one of the other speakers there, we had just celebrated the fact that I had just hit for the first time $1 million in revenue in a year in speaking. And he's a startup guy, right? So he's startup guy, right? And I am whatever, I am unstartup guy, right? So it's and he's just like, so what's next? And he does this, and
he gives you the what's cooler than $1 million? $1 billion.
$1 billion. Let's scale. And I'm like, oh no, thank you.
No.
Right? Oh no, thank you. Right? And then he started talking about how to scale again. So I went, and I just took his hand, and I went like this. I'm like this.
Let's flatten that curve. Let's flatten that arch. Yeah.
This is my dream. My dream when I was 12 was to do this for a living. And I'm sitting here right now eating schnitzel and having a beer in Frankfurt, getting paid to do this. I will not sully that dream to say, what's next? I'm going to enjoy the schnitzel. I'm going to enjoy this. And the plan was, we were just going to keep doing it. That was it. Because why not? That's the goal. That's the dream. I didn't feel I was working. And if you never feel like you're working, you'll never work a day in your life. And so I got it. Honestly, I got it. I was bankrupt in 2008. I went onto Twitter. I just started. I believed in community. I believed in forums. I believed in each other. And I ended up getting the book deal, doing the whole first book tour, 30 cities in 10 weeks, all speaking gigs, all booked through one tweet because of the community. That book blew up, 500 keynotes. I'm just like, this is it. This is it. We have all the plans we're going to do and where we're going to live. And the kids were all finishing high school. And then this stops and hits us. And this allows us to say, well, do I want to go on planes? Only time we make money is I get on a plane. And everybody's been telling me, all my friends and peers in the industry, and some of the best people I know is like, you should probably make some multiple streams of income. I'm like, no. And I'm like this. And I'm like, no, we're just going to do this. And we're going to keep going. There's no problem. And then this. And you realize that immediately when this happened, that everything was shut down. One thing I never got upset at or anxious about, or any of the 72 different emotions I'm feeling on a daily basis, none of them was regret that I'm not on stage. And that was fascinating to me. I didn't miss it. And it wasn't, I didn't miss, I'm a performer. I love this. I love speaking. I still think I'm born to be on stage doing that. I love it. I don't miss it. I don't miss it. And for the first time in 20 years, I don't consider myself a speaker. And that's a big deal. And that's also an ego thing. If my advice was always about don't be a speaker, be an expert who speaks. Well, I got to shore up my expertise. I got to shore up that type of stuff and say, what can I do that can scale? Because I have no equity in a company that's just me speaking. You can't sell that. I can't sell it to somebody else. I can't hand it off to the children. It's like, now it's your time to be Scott, children. Go forth and speak. Right. And when Owen said years ago, he had a thing at school, is like, what do you want to be when you grow up? He's like, I'm going to work for my dad. And I'm like, there's no openings. There's
doing what?
There's no, I'm currently unemployed. Like that was the joke. So now it's just like, speaking is a craft, and it is my craft, and I love it. But I don't picture me being at any stage that I'm willing to go on in the next year. At least I just thought just right now, if you saw my face, I just thought about getting on a plane and I wanted to vomit. Like, honestly, I could feel it. It's so much that, because when all this happens too, you just collapse everything down and you're back to Maslow. You're back to you're just family here, needs, future. How long is our runway? And if I don't get on stage, and do we want the pressure that we only can keep doing this if I get on a plane, which contradicts this moral and this protection? There's a lot of this contradiction happening. But I haven't felt that with speaking. I've been down here. I've spent 2 weeks editing and working on one video. That's a 12-minute video. And the reason why it took me so long to work on it is because I was learning how to make it while making it. And so learning all the software and all the things like a lot of people are doing right now. But I'm sitting down here and I'm loving it because Allison and I are creating together. We're creating based on the knowledge that we've put out there already and put out there to the world and how we can do it. I haven't sat down to learn things, and I don't know if I've ever sat down to learn things. So I've been sitting down to learn things and going through tutorials and the videos, and I'm just getting to a beginner level of a lot of these products and softwares, but even like getting this look and doing the camera right. But I'm home every day. I haven't been home for a month straight ever since being an adult. And I've been home for 4.5, 5 months. And I get the time back. And in this terrible, crappy, what we've got going on right now in the world on so many levels, I get this little silver lining, which is the bonus of getting time back. You're not allowed to get that. They were all leaving. They were all moving out. They were all growing up. We have one finished post-secondary. We have one going into second year, one going into first year, and one soon to start. And like, that was the time they were leaving the nest. And I got to be able to wave them back in for a bit. And that I can't state how we got to reverse that time just a bit. It warms my heart.
I feel you on that. As you know, my kids they're similar in ages to some of yours, and I feel like in February I was feeling this. I would look at them and I would feel this emotion that I don't know that there's a word for. There's certainly not a word for in the English language. I'm searching other languages to find it, but it's almost like I'm feeling anticipatory grief for when they leave. I already miss them, even though they're here. It's like such a melancholy feeling. And there's something about retracting just one of those 9 toes they have out the door back into the home just for a few months. And I like you, I've been on the road. I was on the road as a speaker. I was on the road when I did executive search. I've been on the road since, the dawn of time. And to be able to be home during this time has been such an unexpected silver lining and such a gift and to have them watch us, I think, do the work and reinvent and, show the emotion, deal with the difficulty, and figure out what we're going to do next. I think that's such a valuable lesson. I feel lucky to have this time, even though I hate why we have this time.
Yeah, that's it. That's really it. And there's certainly good days and bad days, and But at the end of the day, they're going to remember this. Everybody's going to remember this time, and it's how we handled the crisis, that how these memories will be formed. And we're very fortunate to be able to live in this house that we have with 5 fully grown children, and 2 dogs and a cat and a couple foster kittens. That we have it, because if it was a few years ago before we moved to this, we'd be on top of each other even more so. So we're very privileged and very fortunate to be able to have some space, that I could have a corner in the basement like here, to be able to create this setup in a studio and figure out what we're going to do next as well. So we're also really fortunate to have 5 incredible kids who have been amazing during all this. Amazing. They've missed their right to have a rite of passage on so many levels, on high school graduations, on relationships, on everything, on first year away at school, and all of those things. And they've handled it like champs. And I guess I'm giving shout out to the kids on the show, because they've been absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible.
So the difference between now and 2008 is, I mean, 2008 was, your world was rocked. You're bankrupt. You're recreating. The kids are much younger. It's, I would imagine, you have less of a runway that's established. Are there things that you wish you would have done differently then, or are there things that you learned then that you're going back to and like using that as either confidence or safety, or mistakes already made so you don't have to make them again? Talk a little bit about the difference, because you have been an incredibly successful speaker where you've hit the $1 million mark. You've had the hundreds of thousands of fans and all this, and you say that you did all that because of the one tweet, but it was because of the hundreds of thousands of tweets that came before that one tweet, obviously. Right. So it looks from the surface like you're overnight success, here it is, but really it's all this time in. So as you go to this new pivot, this new reinvention, you also have all the time in from the 2008 experience also.
Yeah. Well, I don't have regrets at any time. There wasn't something I would have done differently, because I didn't know what I was doing at the time. It was one of my favorite things, one of my favorite shows, the How I Built This podcast from NPR. They interview all these founders, right? The 5 guys to Spanx, to all the founders people want to talk to. And the common thread through almost every single one of those interviews was that ignorance was one of their best gifts. Right? If they knew now what they knew then, they never would have started the company, right? Because they weren't supposed to do it and all those things. So it's a wonderful thing. So I honestly don't have any things I would change from back then. The big difference today versus then is Allison.
Secret weapon.
I didn't know her in 2008. I didn't know her. Actually, behind me is on the wall is my first tweet. It's up on the wall. It's right beside Jack, right there. It's above. It's a tweet. My first tweet sent to her. So my first tweet was July 31st, 2009. And so I didn't have her as part of that world from the beginning of when the company was going down. So having her and having her love and her care and kindness and intellect during this too has just been like, because we pick each other up too, though, right? Like, and you can ebb and flow. When one is kind of having a bad day, you can step up and you kind of just you want to be able to make that work. But her perspective gives me such an outside perspective on stuff, especially now, and bringing her into the stuff as we going forward about, what do you think about this? How you think about this? And creating this video that we've been working on now, it's been like, oh, that makes sense, because it's our thing together. So that is the huge difference, that we are in a home we own, that we bought because of the success we built. That's a huge thing that helps you be able to have that. And then we have it and we own it, because in 2008 I was renting as well. And I didn't have that. You don't have that when you don't have security in your base, just back to Maslow, the hierarchy of needs, right? When you don't have the security in that, and it's uncertain financial security, everything else is just, it's extremely hard to deal with. So even now there's that difference. And, the kids are also older, that there's a huge difference. I have a lot of friends right now have very young children, and I couldn't imagine that right now. That has got to be next to impossible to explain, to handle, to deal with, to do everything you want to be able to do. Because one thing I've learned about parenting and parents overall in general is everybody's just trying their best. And right now it's just like the best is 5%. The best is like, it's just, That's why I want, more kindness and more, and even myself of how I judge and look at things and react is just like everybody's just trying their best.
Yes. And I think we are also redefining what best should be, right? Because it's like I saw a tweet, maybe it was Mel Robbins, I'm not sure, that was like, you're not homeschooling during a pandemic, you're having a pandemic where you're maybe attempting to maybe teach your kid a lesson. I mean, it's like, it's the pandemic, it's not the other stuff.
This isn't work from home, this is work during pandemic. This is not well, are we ready for the new work from home? Like, sure, when does it happen? Because this is not it right now. This is people trying to work during a pandemic at home. This is not working from home. Yes. But I do love how it's opened that up, because the disabled community has been asking for work from home accommodations since I was in HR. So even and before that. So even in the 90s, and we're like, in Canada we have duty to accommodate, and we're like, we're not ready for this. We can do an accommodate. And now they're like, oh no, everybody can work from home. And I just the entire disabled community is just like,
yeah, what up, dude?
Yeah, we've been asking. You said this is literally, you could not do this, and now everybody can do it. And I'm just
yeah. But I think that that's part of what's happening with a lot of people. I've been saying for a while that I reject the whole phrase "the new normal" because I rejected the old normal. I mean, you were the one who was like, entrepreneur is Latin for bad employee, right? Like you and I are, we are brother and sister on this. It's the new normal. Like, at the old normal, I don't want the normal. I want to figure out who I am, right? Scott, LGOV, LGO. And I think so many people, when this all happened, said, oh, well, how do I pivot and just do what I do, but do it through a camera? When the real question is, well, what do you do? What is the problem that you solve? What is the solution that you can bring that problem needs? And then what's the best medium for it? And so figuring that out, that's the learning the new thing. That's the figuring out the video. That's the figuring out all the technology. That's been really challenging, but that is like an identity question more than a skill set question.
Yeah, that's it. And really is what defines me. And for me, it's like, just on speaking alone, like we have one of the only jobs that gets applause. You think about that, right? It's just like,
I've never thought about that.
How many jobs get applause? How many jobs is like you dropped off a package and people are like, yep. Like, literally, I get applause for delivering exactly what I was told to deliver. I fulfilled the job duties fairly well. That was it. And I got a round of applause. And part of it's just like, why are we not applauding teachers? Are we not applauding nurses? Why are we not applauding the people who deserve the applause?
Yes.
Meanwhile, I show up with a USB key, I get a check and a standing ovation. And I'm like, oh, please, thank you. Go on. No, go on. Go on.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Right? And the people are like, well, athletes get it, but they also get booed. I don't get booed. Right. So it's just like, I don't even have to deal with that. Plus, I don't have to run. So take that, athletes.
Yeah. They're definitely suckers for sure. Yeah.
As we're all sitting here now, not getting anything. So I'm just like, I'm trying to get applause. I'm testing out bits on the kids and the dogs, equally unreceptive to the jokes, both the pets and the children. So, you try, but that was a challenge for the kind of the reinventing stuff right now is, okay, so we've got the bits, we've got the stories, but my reps are in the keynotes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the keynotes, they don't transfer that well in this. They don't. And so I'm like, how do we go from 30,000 feet back down to ground level? But also, it's the humor. So the first video, what I think was scripting it. Allison wrote the script, and then I'm looking at a camera right now, and in front of it right now is a teleprompter. It's not on, but it's a teleprompter. I used a teleprompter, and in my own mind, that is preposterous.
That is shocking to me that you use the teleprompter. Yeah,
but it keeps me on script. So it's not looking at, well, I want to do this, I want to be on stage, and I just want to be on stage. It's like, okay, so what did I love about that? I love making people laugh. I love it. I love it. I love speaking. I love being the center of attention. I love all of these things. I know how these things, my brain works that way. But I'm like, so what is the point? No, I love making them laugh, but also because then they listened. And when they listened and they're waiting for the next laugh, I got to make them learn. Right? It's forced learning, and they didn't even know it. It was the best compliment I can get, is like, I learned stuff and I didn't realize it. I'm like, awesome. So this way now, because videos though too is much more, it's as important though on stage when if you have a half an hour, you finish in a half an hour. Well, videos these days, can I get them down to 10 minutes or 12 minutes or 13 minutes or whatever that amount is comfortable with consumption online? But then, I mean, I have to stay on task and on script, and Scott's not good at that. Not good at staying on topic or on script. And so we worked it. Allison wrote it. We revised it. We talked about it. And then I practiced it 11 times with a teleprompter. Can I say that again? I practice 11 times. Now, I know it's only crazy to me right now, and that's what my ego is like, but that is 11 more times than I've ever practiced any talk in the past decade. And I did 11 times because it wasn't smooth yet. It wasn't the way I wanted to. And then I got to use the jump cuts and like the changing the lens or the going to black and white to do my riffs, to do my funny. So I did the script that had some humor in it, but then I could do the side funnies. I could do these little kind of jump cut funny things I wanted to do that was still me. And then we just finished the video last night and doing the edits and everything else. And by the way, I found out why you pay so much for post-production and video. Holy crap. So going through all this stuff and learning it, putting it out there, saying, no, what is the goal here? Is the goal to be able to reach people virtually, to be able to get the message that's important to us on marketing? It's integrity, it's community, it's authenticity. Those are our pillars of what we do. And I said, yeah, it's important. Okay, so then if it's not important for me being on stage necessarily, especially right now, how do we do this? Well, get the message out. It needs to be, we want funny, we want clarity, we want it to be but good content. I'm like, can I do this in the setup? Yeah, we can find a way. And then we got it, and now it really works. And I've never been so proud of a 12-minute video in my life that will be watched by 22 people.
Well, but you never know with this, because we used to have these gatekeepers that would make decisions about whether or not we got on stage and who we spoke to. So I used to think like 5,000 people, bucket list to audience size. And now I'm doing a thing for Beachbody in 2 weeks for I'm doing like a book club in their Facebook group. Their Facebook group has 379,000 members, right? That's insane. Like, will 10% of them watch? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe crazy. That's 38,000 members. So I think it's almost like we've been selling ourselves short the course in the last 10 years. And yeah. I wonder.
Well, it's a scalability though, too, part of it, right? So
See, we're back to scalability now. Here, see, there you go. It's
but the issue of but for me though, when I went like this, and this is gonna be the rest of the life. Well, our lives can still do this. We can still enjoy. But there's going to be blips, but the goal isn't about scalability when it comes to exponential profit growth. It's okay. Is it more? It's like replicable. Can it be used at every talk I give? I have to give a talk. Yes. I have to get on a plane and do this. So then, if we want, our goal is to live what life that our goal is to live and affect the people we want to affect. What does that entail? And can we do a lot of it this way? And the answer is yes. Would I like to be more particular about which events I speak to? Yes. Do I want to put into my contract that if there's more than one keynote, that the other keynote has to be not like me? Yes. Well, I can do that if we don't structure it so every gig I do is the only money we make. Mm-hmm. And I can be much more selective in things when you can take a stance and say that. And the problem is that's what I'm going to be doing anyways. That's just going to be the point. It's like, look, what do I stand for? What do we stand for? What are we going to do? And it's going to be that. And so we can create this content. Plus, then I can give the content, and we can give out the content to whoever we want as well. That we can do, because giving back. The sign in our front hallway says you don't need a reason to help someone. Yes. That we want to be able to give to those that want to learn, that do believe in ethics and integrity and community when it comes to their own business. That those people are also, if they're still in school, if they're struggling right now, that we can just go click and it's done. For me to give a free talk, it's 3 days. Be able to do something, to go somewhere and do it, that we can create value and content and knowledge that we can give to the people in the places that we also want to be able to help. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's such again, it's another silver lining of all of this, right? It's being able to say, like, you can be scalable because you can be in more places at once, because you don't have to go anywhere to be in any of those places is wonderful. And it allows for more of the time to think and learn and get better, and actually get better at the craft, so that you could speak about the thing that you're doing, the expertise that you have. So I appreciate that take on it, because I think there are a lot of people who are like, oh, I mean, I know I spent the first couple of months of COVID being like, I was just starting to get traction. It was incredible. It was great. I was like signing contracts left and right, and then and it all falls apart. And to think about the pivot or the reinvention or to like climb back up out of the hole it's daunting. And so to have the perspective of, of your experiences, I think super useful. And, look, we all know we've all survived all of our worst days, right? So like we're here, it all works out. But to know that people who are looked at as, you're a Hall of Fame speaker, someone who's looked at as an example by so many, do I dare say the M word, mentor? I know that's a dirty word, but who has helped so many people to know that you were going through the shit too, like everyone else, and that you're figuring it out and that you're reinventing, I think is I don't want to say lovely to hear, because I know it's not lovely to experience, but for me, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, like we got this.
One of the things I've learned about getting to speak with people and be on, sharing the stage with certain celebrities and stuff is like, one thing that does bond all of us is that we're all human. Yes. And like, but even the stuff of learning the different programs and learning all the video and virtual and then figuring out and bring all this stuff, that I couldn't do any of it for months when this kicked in. It wasn't there. I wasn't in the right headspace. I wasn't in the right emotional space. I wasn't and so this is even this productivity thing has only been the past couple weeks. Mm-hmm. And so that it's that cutting yourself some slack in that, because I'm really good at beating myself up as well. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't, it's like, so what are we going to do about it? And to be able to Allison know how I'm feeling and whether, and she's the one that encourages me, but she said something to me yesterday. I came up and it was kind of dinner time, and I kind of came out of the lab down here,
the dungeon,
and I'm just like, I'm just going to go back down, finish. And she's just like, maybe you should take a break from working today. And I'm like, have you ever thought you'd say that? Was that a line you thought was going to come up at any time in our relationship? Because I was really good at not doing stuff.
She like, pace yourself, honey. Pace yourself.
I'm like hour number 9 on one transition edit. And I'm just like, I can get this to work. I can get this to work. And it's certainly different now too, because before, one of the things we did for the business was like, I took a great course from a guy, Cliff Ravenscraft, called Podcasting A to Z, or A to Z, if you prefer. And I learned everything about podcasting, from the soundboards and everything else to uploading, everything. I took the whole thing to understand that I didn't want to do any of it. Like but I wanted a base knowledge. It's like taking an accounting course. I don't want to run the books. I just want to know when that number is over there, what it means versus over there.
Yeah.
And so we hired the people, right? We hired the audio engineer. We hired a video team. We wanted episode 1 to make it look like we knew what we were talking about. And you're going up to this point now, and you realize, so I always about outsourcing your weakness and accenting your strengths, but that's a statement of privilege. Honestly, it's a statement of privilege. What if you can outsource this? And so for us, we locked it down. You go to zero revenue, and all of our books, we can't use any of that stuff. So you look at, okay, so we just locked down spending everything. I mean, everything. No movie rental, no nothing. And said, but I can learn this stuff. I can do it, because the more we spent right now on no problem people spending money on their business, but if it doesn't work, it shortens your runway from what you're doing. So how long can we keep this runway? And all I've got before, instead of having less time, more money, now I got more time, less money. Then I actually love creating. I love this stuff that I haven't created in a very long time. I love the edits. I love jump cuts. My problem is I watch anything now on any TV. I'm like, oh, that was a good cut. That was a good edit. I love the framing of that. I'm speaking like a pro video an editor, and I've done it for 2 weeks. I'm like, I would have done that cut. We were watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine last night. I'm like, I would have done that cut differently. And Allison looks at me. Okay, yeah.
Great.
You're giving commentary on edits now that you've been doing for 2 weeks, and I'm like, yeah, I think if they just jumped it that direction.
So, yeah, suddenly you're Scott Kurosawa.
Yeah, boom, exactly. And then I'm like Zimmer. I'm like, if the soundtrack just went differently on that point. But at the end of this, it's just like, just like speaking, right? When the time just flies. Well, I was down 9 hours yesterday working on this, and it was just like, it was like that. It was going, because I love that process, and I haven't been able to create in so long because I didn't think about it. I didn't do it, and Allison wrote the books. So I'm gonna go and yell at people and go home, and that was it. But now we get to work together. I've never felt so connected with Allison when it comes to the business part of it too, because she is the biggest asset in this, and a lot of times she's just playing the role of whatever I needed her to at the time. You know, it wasn't me saying, so where do you want the company to go? What do you want us to do? It was that she's writing this, we do the show together, and I do the speaking, and there we go. And I'm not tapping into that asset of her brain and her emotion and her love and her awareness, that I'm just like, well, I'm just going to go yell something now. And it doesn't make sense. Like, I finished the video last night, and the first thing I want to do is just send it everywhere. Well, it's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to plan. We're trying to create a path, logical. And I'm just like, here, internets, here's a video with no plan. And I don't want to. Well, that's not the way it is. So we talk about it. We talk about spending. We talk about, I'm going to buy something for it took me 3 months to buy a piece of equipment for the microphone, a cloud lifter that brings the dB to a level that you want. Yeah, learning sound too. So and that was if anybody knows sound, I'm just talking gibberish at this point. But it was 3 months to decide to buy it. Like, it's weighing it out and testing it. Could I do something else for it? And that's smart. That's supposed to be, you're supposed to do that. That's supposed to what humans do. But I'm just like, I'll buy it and see if I need it. Right. And that's just, again, a privileged statement of something, and realizing, no, let's work together. Then it also shows a respect to your significant other, because the key word is supposed to be significant. They should be treated significantly better than the rest of humans out there. And so I'm working on that.
This has been a great hour. Thank you for today. I love this concept of sort of going, metaphorically or physically, going into the basement, going into the dungeon, going into the lab, figuring out where you are, what you stand for, what you want to be talking about, how you maximize the assets around you, whether it's the work that you've done, the writing that you have, the friends that you've made, the partner, the very significant other who I love to death. I am the president of the Allison Stratten fan club, and don't you come to try to take that title from me, because sorry, you're like I have
a poster here somewhere, I think, of the president of the fan club. I don't. Yeah,
I was gonna say, like, on the org chart, there's like the CEO, and then there's all the people under the CEO, but there's like the one person to the side that like has the secret special door to the CEO's office. Like, you can be that person, but I am the head of the C-suite.
No. I'll be the treasurer, because I treasure her.
Oh, wow. I don't even know what to say to that. That was incredible. This is why you make the living with the words.
I told you I don't have an audience, so I have to make the audience this way. Yeah.
That was great. I'm gonna clap. There you go. There it is. Where can he's leaving. So if you are looking for Scott Stratten or Allison Stratten, where can the fine people find you?
Right here. I don't know. We're talking. That's the only place. This is the only place currently you can reach.
This is it. Showing up daily.
It's Kaiser Sose. I'm just like, I'm gone. Right. And you'll never see me again. Unmarketing.com, and but on marketing, all platforms, but really just be kind to each other. And I'm gonna get back to work and do some edits, and then judge some other edits of, I don't know, Parks and Rec later tonight. We'll see.
It sounds like a fine plan. Thank you for being my guest today.
Oh, no. Thank you for asking me on. It's been wonderful. And I'm pitch hitting because it's the only thing I can do now. I'm a 45-year-old softball player. That's all I can do is pinch hit. I can't start anything. But anytime you need help, we love you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you.